Alright, on today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an optic that has a nice big window, enclosed emitter, multi-reticle system, a nice rugged housing, and two different risers, all for under 200 beans. So let's check out the RedWin Optics Cobra Max Pro MTR. Alright, we're over on the other bench and we're going to go over all the specs and features of the RedWin Cobra Max Pro MTR. Now I'm going to bring a picture up on the screen and show you everything that comes in the box, and you can pause it and check it out. Now when you're on their website, they're going to have a lot of different options for this RedWin optic. They have different mounting options. They also have this in a green dot version, and they also have a solar backup version. I went with the taller mount due to the fact of what I'm going to be putting this on. But they also have a version available with this low profile mount if you need this style mount for what you're going to be putting it on. Now both of these mounts, depending on which one you decide to go with, they do have a built-in recoil lug. And you will tighten this down with a Torx wrench to your 1913 rail. So let's get some quick specs out of the way. This has an overall length of 2.2 inches. It has a width of 1.5 inches, and this particular model has an overall height of 2.5 inches. And this optic's got a little bit of weight to it. It weighs 4 ounces. Now, as you can see, this optic has a pretty good size window on it, and your lens on this is 29 by 22 millimeters. Now, this optic does have a multi-reticle system. Right now, I've got the 3 MOA red dot on. This also has a 32 MOA circle. You can run the circle by itself, you can run the dot by itself, or you can run the circle and dot together. Now the optic is nice and bright. It's not one of the brightest that I've seen, but it will definitely get the job done. And I do have this turned all the way up, and I'm getting very little starbursting. Now you do have 10 brightness level adjustments. You've got 8 daytime and 2 NV. You've got your up button here to increase the brightness, and your down button here to decrease the brightness. And if you want to cycle between the different reticles, you're going to hold the up button for 3 seconds. It'll go from the dot to just the circle, hold it again for 3 seconds, and it will go to the dot and circle together. And if you want to shut the optic off, you are going to hold the down button for 3 seconds, and it will shut itself off. Now this does have a side load battery tray. It runs on a CR2032 battery. It has up to 50,000 hours of battery life. Obviously that's going to be on the lowest setting, and this optic does have shake awake. Now this optic is nitrogen purged, so it is fog proof, and it has an IPX67 waterproof rating. Now this optic is shock proof, and it is drop safe up to 3 feet. Now one thing that I like to do in every one of the unboxing portions of these review videos on an optic is test the windage and elevation. Your elevation is on this side. It says up, you got a nice bright white arrow pointing down, so you know exactly which way to zero the optic. Now these are 1 MOA per click, and you have 60 MOA of total travel on the windage and on the elevation. So let's check and see how tactile and audible these are. Oh, that's nice. Nice tactile clicks. A little audible, not real loud, but you can hear the clicks. Now let's check our windage. Same thing. Nice tactile clicks, nice positive stop in between each one, and they are fairly audible. And you do have your R with your arrow pointing this direction, very easy to see. So our gun that we're going to be using today to test out our RedWin optic is the Mac IX from SDS Arms. So this optic and this gun came in for review right about the same time, and these two together make a great combination. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, they make two different risers for this. For this setup, I needed the taller riser. And when I bring this gun up, that optic is right there where I need it. Now, the first thing I had to do when I got to the range was get this sighted in. It did take a few shots. The first shot was very low right, but after a few rounds, I got it dialed in right where I wanted it. Now, this optic is nice and bright. Once I got it out to the range, I turned it all the way up, and then I turned it back down a couple clicks, and I had it right where I wanted it. Now, the glass on this is nice and clear. I'm not getting that blue tint like I do with some of the other optics. So my first impressions, I'm really liking this optic. Now, I ran a couple mags through this just because this was a whole new setup. We're talking a new gun and a new optic. But after a couple mags, I was feeling really comfortable with this setup. So I decided to set up a target at 15 yards, and I wanted to shoot some 10-shot groups. And my groups, they weren't the best. It's all on me. It has nothing to do with this gun or this optic. But I was switching back and forth between two different PDWs. I was also out doing the review on the PSA AKV9. And there's a pretty big difference between the two guns. They both definitely feel a lot different when you're shooting them. So I think my groups would have been a little better if the only gun I was shooting that day was this Mac IX. Now, after I got done shooting the 10-shot groups, I went ahead and set up a couple USPSA targets and a couple steel plates, and I wanted to see how this dot was going to do transitioning from target to target. And again, nice clear window, nice big window. Transitioning from the USPSA targets to the steel targets was a piece of cake. And the more I shot this setup, I was getting a lot more comfortable with it. I was still throwing a few Charlies here and there, but I was pretty happy with how the setup was performing. All right, we got all our hits on the first piece of steel. Oh, this is nice. All alphas. And our next target, we got all alphas, two Charlies right outside the perf. And we got all our hits on our last piece of steel. Now, I've said this time and time again when I do optic reviews, I don't care about a multi-reticle system. I just prefer to use a red dot or a green dot. But being that I'm reviewing this optic, I did want to try out the multi-reticle system. And I must say, I was quite impressed with it. Once I turned the dot and the circle on together, it seemed to be a little bit brighter than just using the dot. And what I was most impressed with was how crisp and clear the dot and circle were together. So if you're a fan of using the dot and the circle, you're going to really like the reticle on this optic. Now, I ended up racking up a little over 500 rounds on this optic, and that's because I was doing the review on the Mac IX and the optic. And when I got back home from the range, I wanted to test to see if the shake awake worked. I think it's a better test to wait till after the range to see if it's still working. And I'm happy to report that the shake awake was working just fine. It shut off within a couple minutes, and it comes right back on as soon as you tap the optic or you pick up the gun. So let's get into the pros and cons of the Cobra Max Pro from RedWin. And guys, I'm having a really hard time coming up with a con for this optic. In fact, I'm really nitpicking here. The only thing that I do not like is how small the slot is to adjust your windage and elevation. You have to use a very tiny flathead screwdriver, but the adjustments, they're tactile and audible enough. This optic never lost zero after 500 rounds, but if I had to make one complaint about this optic, it would be that. Those slots need to be just a little bit bigger. So now let's talk about the pros, because I have quite a few pros with this optic. First off is the price. I said at the beginning of the video that this optic is under 200 beans. The one that I have with this riser and the multi-reticle system is coming in right at about 190. Now, if you're like me and you don't care about multi-reticle and all you want to do is get a dot, they're just a little over 150. And if you go on RedWin's website, they have a lot of different options for this optic. You can get it with the multi-reticle, without the multi-reticle. They also have a solar version of this. So it's the exact same optic that I have here with the taller riser, but it has a solar panel on the top, and it only jacks the price up another 20 beans, so it's coming in right under 220. Now, we already talked about the optic is plenty bright, get very little starbursting, but I am getting a little bit. You turn on the dot and circle together, it's one of the cleanest dot and circle combos that I've seen on a budget optic. I love the window size on this. It's not the biggest that I've tested, but it's plenty big enough to get done what you need to get done at the range. I really like the design of this optic. I think it's a good looking optic. They did a really good job on the housing. The glass in the front is recessed back in pretty far, so you're not going to have to worry about your front glass getting damaged. And even on the back, they've sunk the glass in a little bit. There's about 1/8 of an inch of housing protecting the outside of the window. The other pro with this, it's a side load battery. You do have to remove 2 screws to pull the tray out, so just keep that in mind. Those screws are very small and they are easy to lose. And being that it runs on that CR2032 battery and it has shake awake, if you're running this on the lowest setting, it's got a 50,000 hour battery life. And the last pro that I like with this are the buttons to adjust your brightness level up and down. They are very tactile and audible. The buttons are fairly big, so it's easy to know when you're hitting the up or hitting the down button. I really like the button design. I do have one suggestion I'd like to make to RedWin. In the future, if they decide to make a different version of this optic, just recess those buttons in a little bit more. Just about a 1/16 of an inch, because there is a little bezel around the buttons, and I'd like to see the bezel sticking out a little further than the buttons so you can't accidentally bump those. Now keep in mind, a lot of optics nowadays have a lifetime warranty, where the RedWin optics, they only have a 5-year warranty. I'm giving it a pass on that just due to the price of this optic, but this is the second optic from RedWin that I've reviewed on the channel. The last one was a pistol dot, and I really liked that optic. In fact, I did that review a little over 2 years ago, and I just had that optic out the other day, and it is still working great, and I haven't changed the battery in it. But I'd really like to see you guys start offering a lifetime warranty, because I think you're making a really great product at a great price, but a lot of people are going to turn their back when they know they're not getting a lifetime warranty. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.